Hello, welcome to another session of Learn with Veer Sagar. Today I'm going to talk about how do you grow in a big number. When you say grow normally, if you say, look, next year I will grow through efficiency increase, that's 5%, maybe 10%, and a lot of hard work. So if you want to grow big, then you can't expect to do the same thing, do it a little better, but expect results totally out of line. So what do you have to do? You have to have what I call constructive destruction. Break down the total current process. Zero. Take it down to ground zero. Start from there. Start from scratch. Do not try to rebuild on the current process, because if you rebuild, you will have incremental changes and profits. When I was in Dunlop, I was made in charge of a department called supplies and distribution. This was basically the link between the factory, the manufacturing, and the sales. The sales depots, the sales managers sent at the end of every month a requisition of what they would need next month to meet their sales targets, size by size, item by item. These were then collated in the supplies and distribution manager's office, and a total requirement for the country was produced. This was now matched against the capacity for each one of those items and the total in the groups, so that a final production plan was made for the month. And this was then broken down into depot-wise distribution plan, which branch would get how much or which size. And then that was further then allocated to transport allocation, so that you plan transport to take them in that given time to that same place. It was a fairly well-run, smooth system. And I came in and caused a destruction. I was very well conversant with the planning bit because it was well computerized, and I was part of the team that did that computerization. So we knew the sales process, we knew the manufacturing process, and all that we had to do in this matching is to try and optimize either the capacity utilization or minimize or optimize or maximize something for profits or whatever. There were large long distance trucks, interstate trucks, there were state trucks, and there were local trucks. But they were trucks all the same. In those days, and I'm sure they still exist today, there was a maximum limit to what you could load a truck. And since we were on self-payment, right? So we had to produce very rigid documentation of any good that goes out of the factory. So the truck number which carried the product was there on the challan. So in the factory, when products were allocated to a truck, the truck number was written on the waybill. What normally a lot of these truck drivers would do, right? They would somehow manipulate in such a way that they convert two trucks into one and then take them to the end depot. And there used to be a lot of trouble trying to match the truck numbers with the waybills, with the invoices. And it would have this constant thing that the truck broke down, and in order to meet the delivery time, we had to do this. So I had this cost of managing this as well as bringing the cost down. If I had done, my predecessors had done, is call all the truck owners and say, I want price reduction. So please go back. And after a lot of pressure putting, you would probably end up getting 10%, between 5 and 15% on different routes reduction in traffic. So you would manage an average of 10% reduction and a lot of unhappy truck owners. And I was not looking for 10%. The amount of effort you spend for getting the 10% is totally disproportionate. I was looking for something major, 50% perhaps, or more. So if I wanted to get a 50% reduction in cost, then I had to do something dramatically different. Right? So break down the entire transport thing and think from scratch. We thought over it. Then we came around, we found that the only way to cut costs, the only cheaper way of transporting goods is by train, by rail. And it was not a preferred option because once you gave the material to the railways, you had no control over when it will reach, where it will reach. So we had no way of telling the branches or the depots, look, this material is on the way in transit and will reach you by so and so date, so that they could arrange for onward sales. So therefore it was not used. I said, if I can find a way of fixing this problem, then I have a chance of hitting that 50% plus target. In the Dunlop factory, there was a railway siding because we used to get coal, and coal would come in wagons. So if wagons could come in, wagons could go out. So the only way wagons would come in is they would come in long full trains, and they would come here and unload a full rake full coal. So if we could create a rake full of tires, products, to go out from the factory to a branch, then maybe we could fix this problem. So we designed Dunlop trains. Trains going from Shahganj factory to, let's say, Delhi. Along the way, right, at Mughal Sarai and other junctions, some bogies would come out and go to Lucknow, go to Kanpur, right, go to Agra, right, or move up and go to Assam, Guwahati. Similarly, go towards Bombay, where trains going towards Bombay, then along the way to Nagpur, some will break off. But we had full control on the train, and this train had a schedule. So you knew when exactly this train would go, and then we had a feedback saying where this train had reached. So we fixed that problem of control on delivery time. But then the problem was to fill up a full train. Now that is a major thing, because to fill up a full train, right, and send it to a branch cannot take it. Maybe the region couldn't take it. So we had to spend a lot of time in designing a planning system, right, for the quarter. Instead of planning for a month, we had small size items, which were not regularly in production, to be pre-allocated and said, these will be made in these months, and we'll make 6 months output or 1 year's requirement of those. So the branches also knew when these items, rare items, would be available to them. So we had to do a lot of churning around to say, okay, how do we then manage a 3-month cycle of requirements for the factory and put them in a 1-month delivery? This would mean additional pressure on the depots because there were stocks. But it also meant additional carrying capacity because some items they had to carry. But when we looked at all these costs and put it against the cost of transport, physical transport, the saving was unbelievable. And we initialized that, created this Dunlop train, and we had to do a lot of last mile work, because having reached a particular place, from there to the branch, now how do you get? When you send by trucks, the truck comes straight to the branch office. So we had to do these, but we were able to fix. The major breakthrough was the first thought of using rail instead of road. And for doing that, yes, there will always be issues, but we sat down, analyzed the issues, and fixed them. So the major lesson here was that if you want to get major savings or do something big, then you have to think totally out of the box, constructively destroy what you're doing, start from ground zero. Then you will find that you will be able to achieve what you set out to do. Otherwise, you will get only incremental change and incremental benefits. With that, thank you very much. It's Veer Sagar saying goodbye till we see again in the next session of Learn with Veer Sagar.